Hello and welcome to another episode of the Contract Warrior podcast. Today we're going to talk about assumptions during proposal phase. I am your host, Christopher Williams, and I am a former contracting officer of 17 years, cradle to grave contracting with NAVFAC, both services, A&E, construction, REAs, claims, you name it. And it is my honor to help facilitate this education gap that's between the federal agency and the federal contractors. Collectively, we can try to narrow that gap and support the warfighter. If you're looking to communicate better with your contracting officer, I put a free training together titled Think Like Your KO. This training has got some pearls in there that will really help you close the gap, regardless if your KO is receptive or not. Just head over to thinklikeyourko.com, put in your email address, send it in. I will send it right to you, and life is good, right? If you want to give me some feedback, head on over to contractorko.com and let me know what you think. I appreciate your feedback, any questions you have, and I may use that also on future episodes. So let's talk about assumptions during proposal phase. So I'm just going to talk about pre-award and what does that mean, right, in your proposal. So when you send in a proposal, we've already sent out a solicitation. The contractors looked at it and they decided, yeah, I want to go to the job walk or the pre-proposal conference, right? So there's a date in there. You show up, you go to the pre-proposal conference or the job walk, and you make sure it walks like a duck and it talks like a duck. And so you're like, yeah, okay, I have some questions. You submit the questions. And when you submit those questions, you get some answers, and maybe you submit more questions and you say, hey, thanks for the answers. However, this has a big impact on my particular dollar value for XYZ. I have an additional question that's going to really hinder my proposal. Please answer this question. And the agency may answer it or they may not. So let's say they don't, right? Because some contractors say, wow, well, I can't propose because if I propose, they didn't answer my question. So how can I include that into my proposal? In the formation of assumptions, right? When you put your proposal together, you should always have a cover page that represents your company. You should always have in there any assumptions that you identify as ambiguous to the contract that you want clarified in association with your firm fixed price. This is a big deal because this action is demonstrating your ability to govern all your responsibilities and put your best foot forward. It is not unallowable for you to include assumptions in your proposal. What the contracting officer is supposed to do is address those assumptions prior to award or end up adopting those assumptions when they make the award, because the contract includes the solicitation, the proposal, and the design. So if you have assumptions in your proposal, those are going to be adopted into the contract. Okay, this is something that needs to be addressed or will be adopted. And you'll see this in the case of a period of performance. Okay, so let's say that the solicitation goes out with a 270-day period of performance, and at some point it's discussed that it's 365 is fine, but the Q&A doesn't identify 365 calendar days, and we're trying to get this thing awarded. So you submit your proposal, you put a cover page on there, and you identify the assumptions associated includes a 365 calendar day period of performance. Let's say you are the lucky one to receive the contract for signature review prior to obligation by the KO. You will also review the period of performance, but if you don't catch that it was incorrect or not, you can still advocate for your 365 in post-award, okay? You should have caught it when you reviewed the contract, but let's say it's one of those infamous September 30th awards, and you're being asked to review as quick as you can and to reply as quick as you can. You can reply and send it back, but then also on the following day say, hey, actually we need that adjusted because my proposal said 365. This is a big deal. This is huge. And it's a great example of what's allowable and what's not allowable. Okay, so your assumptions are allowable, namely on your proposal. Now, with that said, you can also disqualify yourself if your proposal says, I get let's say something horrendous like, yes, my firm fixed price is $550,000 plus I get you might write on there, one of my assumptions is that I get another $100,000 bonus if I can get done within 180 calendar days, right? The KO is not going to award that. They are going to actually disqualify you. It's going to be a failure. So you can blow it out of water if you don't do it correctly. So reasonably, prudently, I know that was a horrible example, but the point is if you reasonably, prudently apply assumptions, they're within the realism of the construct, right? They actually make sense and they're applicable. They're not illogical and they're not inconceivable. Then it would be applicable. It would be part of your proposal, prudently applied and just not considered. That's it. And then it would be part of the contract when it's awarded. Now, that doesn't mean you get away with anything because if it's so absurd and doesn't fit, it can absolutely be challenged in post-award. And so with that gives you a little bit of armament when it comes to submitting your proposal. Just make sure you get it right. And all the contractors I know that are super professional and efficient in their world, right, of federal contracting, they always have a cover page. They always represent themselves professional, and they always put that information in there to ensure any kind of ambiguity they think exists, that they made a concluding effort on the cover page of their proposal. That's it. That is you taking the lead as a quality control contractor. That lead speaks volumes to the contracting officer. So you're not an idiot. You're a very well qualified federal contractor in that industry. You arrived here based on your competencies, and so it's your professional opinion that this has to be incorporated, and it's part of your firm fixed price. Just be ready to defend it and discuss it. That's all that you should be ready to do. And obviously that bonus example is kind of silly, and you can't defend it. So you know what I'm saying. In reality, it has to be prudent and reasonable. And your number would, your firm fixed price would be able to explain it as well. So always be ready to be transparent with the government. The only thing that's not transparent in that relationship is the government estimate. So you might ask the question, well, Chris, does this also work in post-award when it comes to change orders? The answer is yes. If you have a change order that's issued, you have an unforeseen that happened and there's some kind of pipe that's in the way that nobody knew was there and you have to remove the pipe or the culvert or whatever, some abandoned equipment, absolutely, you can do the same thing. You can submit a proposal. And if for some reason the scope of work and the questions and answers didn't identify enough confidence for you to submit a proposal without any assumptions, you can absolutely include assumptions on that cover page of your proposal. Now, remember that those assumptions can crack open a conversation, right? So you want that because they're cardinal. It was important enough for you to highlight those assumptions. Therefore, it's important enough for the contracting officer to either adopt them or to digest them and have a conversation about each one of those. And you never know. You might bring up something that the government didn't know about, and it's a perfect time for the government to take that information and let every contractor know that this is a consideration. And it's a case by case and complexity and so forth. But ultimately, that is allowable. You can do that on any proposal. It's the KO's responsibility to address assumptions, or otherwise they end up awarding them, right? Big deal, big pearl, big gold nugget for all the federal contractors that get a hold of this education. With that said, thank you for your time. Again, I am Christopher Williams. I am a former contracting officer. If you want that free training on how to communicate better to your KO, head over to thinklikeyourko.com. Pick it up. It's sitting there waiting for you. If you have some feedback for me, go over to contractorko.com. Ask me a question. Give me feedback. I enjoyed looking at that. I appreciate it. And until next time, have an awesome day, and we'll see you on the next episode.